Yesterday we talked 3 big questions surrounding the Pitt football offense, so that means today we are turning to the other side of the ball and talking about defense. 3 big questions we are looking at heading into the 2025 season, heading into training camp for the Pitt Panthers. I'm Nathan Brysinger. This is the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. Going to try to do this as much as we can throughout the week, bring you guys analysis, insight about this Pitt football team. We are just about 20 days away from training camp opening in the last week of July, so it's coming soon. It's coming quickly, and then the season's right around the corner, starting on August 30th against Duquesne. But Pitt, 3 questions we are looking at on defense. Yesterday, like I said, we talked about the offensive side of the ball, talked a little Eli Holstein, offensive line, all sorts of stuff over there, so check out our video from yesterday. But today we are talking defense, and starting things off, question number 3 that we have in terms of just big questions that need answered going into the season is, will this secondary improve this year? Last year, the pass defense was not that good at all for this Pitt football team. Allowed 265 yards per game through the air. That was 122nd in the nation. That was 15th in the ACC out of 17 teams. There needs to be a whole lot more improvement, but can it happen? They have a couple pieces back. They have guys, pretty much their projected starting 4 guys in that secondary between the 2 corners and the 2 safeties are guys that have played, that have started in this defense outside of Cruz Brookins, who got some time last year, a lot of time last year, but still, he's a redshirt sophomore, young. But can this Pitt secondary really take that next step? Can they improve? Can they be more sound this year? And when you look at those projected 4 starters in that secondary, looking at the 2 corners, they're always tested, obviously, in this Pitt and Pat Narduzzi defense, stranded on an island, one-on-one, more often than not. Rashad Battle, he's in his 6th season. He's battled a lot of injuries for this in his time at Pitt, and now this is sort of it. This is his final year where he can really make a name for himself. He's had some flashes. He's got some good size to him, about 6'3", but can he become more of a complete corner? Can he be a better tackler? Can he be better in coverage? Can he, jump passes? Whatever needs to happen, we need to see that. We need to see another level out of his play, because last year there were times, and especially in those losses towards the end of the season, that he missed some tackles. He missed some plays. He let up some big plays, and that's a huge thing for this Pitt defense as well. Pat Narduzzi preaches all the time, limit the explosive plays, and that relies really a lot on this secondary, especially in the pass game, because Pitt has been really good in the run-stop game. They only allowed 112 yards per game last year, 3rd in the ACC, tied 19th in the country, so that's been good. Now, obviously, that has left the secondary a little bit susceptible because Pitt likes to bring a lot of pressure, leaves those guys out a little bit high and dry, but can the secondary, if they can really lock it down, this defense can be really, really good for this Pitt team this year. I really think that is a possibility of Pitt all around having a really fantastic defense in 2025. So across from Rashad Battle will be Tamon Lum after Rylan Gandy transferred out of the program. So Lum, I was probably more impressed by Lum than I was Battle this past season. He only had 3 starts rather, but he played in every single game. He's got some pretty good size. He's 6'2", but he's got those long arms that you'd like to see in a corner. Thought he was pretty good just, in coverage, staying close to his man, not losing anybody in coverage. Very rare miscommunication from him. He had 36 tackles, had a pick, had 7 pass breakups. Thought he was solid. So now that he's going to be guy starting pretty much every single day, what can he do for this Pitt defense between him and Battle? And some of the backup guys at corner, Rashawn Murray, he's a Cal U Division II transfer, but was an All-American at that level. He's a Pittsburgh kid. Can he sort of embody that Pittsburgh grit that we've seen some from these other corners, Dane Jackson, MJ Devonshire, that have come through this program? And then Shadarian Harrison, won the most improved player on the defensive side of the ball during spring camp. He looked really solid, jumped 2 really good passes against Eli Holstein to force a couple of interceptions during the spring game. So the corners, their top 2 guys, and Battle Lum, have plenty of experience and look like guys that could be really solid and sound corners, but can they live up to that? And then the safeties, the two safeties, Javon McIntyre. This is going to be his third full year starting for this Pitt defense. Seemed like he regressed just a little bit last year. There were some question marks surrounding him. Donovan McMillan obviously had a lot of the spotlight on him, but what can Javon McIntyre do this year? Can he get back to the level he sort of played in 2023? In 2023, was second on the team with 85 tackles behind McMillan. Had a bunch of pass breakups. Last year, he was only down to about 30 or so tackles on the year. So, actually 51 tackles on the year, 3.5 tackles for loss, but still a step back. It's a 30 tackle decrease from the year before. And then you have Cruz Brookins. We'll see what they do with Cruz Brookins, because he might be a guy that they sort of unleash, let him do what he can, and be a ball hawk. He's been a guy in camp year after year that has forced a lot of turnovers. He had 2 interceptions last year in the 2024 season. Had an interception against West Virginia in the backyard brawl. So what are they going to do with him? And as a whole, you got 4 to 5 guys that can really make an impact. And then at safety behind Brookins, behind McIntyre, you have transfer Kavir Baines Marquez. He's a smaller guy, but the coaching staff really likes him. Says he's a very physical player, can be a very good disruptor. And then Jesse Anderson, another younger guy that will most likely be on that 2-deep roster for that safety position. So as a whole, will this secondary improve for 2025? Because they struggled in the pass game last year. Number 2, big question surrounding this defense. Looking at that linebacker position, man, I mean, this group of players can be one of the best linebacker units in the country. I mean, we already know what Kyle Lewis can do. He was an All-American last year. We saw what Rasheem Biles can do. Is he going to be an All-American this year? Like, that's where it is right now. That's where the talk can be right now for Biles, because he was just that good. He missed a game with injury. And then in middle linebacker, we'll see who takes home the starting job. I mean, at the end of the camp, there was talk that Jeremiah Marcelin can take it, but Braylon Lovelace has been very solid, was pretty productive last year. But the question for this group is, can the linebackers live up to the expectations, to the bar that has been set? Because it's pretty high right now. And this linebacker group is probably the best on paper that we've seen at Pitt in a long time, especially at least under Pat Narduzzi. And you just look at some of the numbers last year between the 3 guys I had just mentioned, Lewis, Biles, and Lovelace, who, if Lovelace can take that starting job at middle linebacker, but 236 tackles combined. 40.5 tackles for loss, and 16.5 sacks. Those tackles for loss numbers, that was 38.2% of the tackles for loss across the Pitt defense. And that tackles for loss number as a whole, 106 tackles for loss on the year, was 8th in the country last year. So that just goes to show how productive this linebacker room was. And then also 16.5 sacks, that was 40% of the Pitt sack production on the year. They finished with 41 total on the year. The entire defense tied 6th in the country. So a lot of that relies on the linebacker unit. So now there's a lot of pressure going to be on this linebacker unit. We know they're called the Sharks. We know what they were able to do. They were able to make impact play after impact play. So can this group, along with Jeremiah Marcelin, along with, if we see much of Cam Lindsey at star linebacker behind Kyle Lewis, Jaden Bonsu, the Ohio State transfer, who's a big dude and has a lot of good size, but can he put it all together on the field if he can get onto the field as well? Because he's at star linebacker too, which is behind Lewis and Lindsey. If not, Lindsey and Bonsu are fighting for that second spot. But overall, can this linebacker unit live up to the expectations? Because they can have a tremendous season again, even better than what they had, obviously with more experience. They're another year older with the guys that made impacts last year. And no knock on Brandon George or Keith Thompson, but it was Biles, it was Lewis, it was Lovelace that really were the big producers on this linebacker unit for Pitt a season ago. So here we go. I mean, this expectation, this bar has been set for this Pitt linebacker unit. Can they have 2 All-Americans? Can they have 3 guys make all the ACC teams between those starting 3? We'll have to wait and see, because it's a tremendous linebacker unit, and there'll be a lot of excitement surrounding it going into the season, and teams will have to game plan for it for sure. the number one question, and I think this is just the most important question on this defense, who will step up at defensive end? Last year, there just was not you talk about how much production at the linebacker unit, there really was not a whole lot at defensive end. A lot of missed opportunities, a lot of missed tackles, a lot of missed sacks that they could have had, a lot of missed tackles for loss. Outgoing players, you had Nate Matlack, Sincere Edwards, which is a big loss, but at the same time, you know what? You can only bank really on potential. He had a pretty solid, time that he was in last year during games for Pitt. But you know what? You move on from him. David Ojebwe didn't play much. Chief Borders really wasn't much of an impact either. Those two guys transferred in and spent 1 year at Pitt. But the Panthers, they bring in a slew of transfers. Blaine Spires from Utah State, Joey Zielinski from Eastern Michigan, and Jaden Moore from Oregon. And then you have Jimmy Scott, who he'll be, anchoring down one side. I mean, he's most likely got this starting DN spot locked up. Last year, he finished with 30 tackles and was pretty good at getting into the backfield. 12 and a half tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and also forced a fumble as well last year. So Scott, he's a guy that's on the All-ACC radar, getting a couple nods preseason-wise in that category. But who's going to be the guy on the other side? They need someone else that can cause problems off the edge, because those D tackles are going to be a really good group this year between Nick James and Sean Fitzsimmons and Francis Brew and Jasir Whittington. Those 5 guys, and Isaiah Neal, those 5 guys, I mean, they'll have a nice rotation at D tackle, but who can rotate in at DN along with Scott? And then on the other end, right now, that is one of the biggest, most wide open positions going into fall camp. That other defensive end spot, who will take over that starting role? Because you have those 3 transfers we listed off. Nate Temple is back in his 7th year. Will he be able to get back up to the level he was prior to the injury that he sustained before camp last year, or during camp last year, that kept him out the entire season? Temple, Blaine Spires is a 6th-year guy. Zielinski's another veteran guy from Eastern Michigan, who they're both longer, lengthier guys. But in my book, I think the most intriguing guy in this defensive end unit is Jaden Moore. And we're going to talk about him a bunch before this season even starts. We'll see him in camp. But he's young. He's a redshirt sophomore, but the staff is really high on him. They really like what he can do. They think he can be the guy they're kind of looking for long-term. Now, obviously, is he going to play a ton this year? Probably not a whole lot, just because of the guys with veteran experience in front of him. But still, Moore, if he's the real deal, he will see the field plenty enough this season. We saw what Sincere Edwards did last year as a true freshman, got to see the field. Francis Bruce saw the field as a true freshman on the D-line. But the Pitt DN unit, the edge rushers, they need someone. They need someone to step up this year. That's our number one question for this Pitt defense entering 2025. Well, we'll have some more video content for the remainder of the week, but be sure to check out all of our written content over on Pittsburgh Sports Now. I'm Nathan Bryson, and this has been another episode of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse.